Hey, so if you've been following along since part one, you'll recognize these shots of the faceplate, steady rest, and four jaw chuck. The faceplate obviously is the worst of the lot. The steady rest is a close second. And believe it or not, the four jaw chuck is not bad at all. This was in the box with the four jaw chuck, so I thought it'd be fun just to include that. Pause and read if you like. So several months ago when I brought the lathe home, I put this faceplate in evaporust and left it for a day and pulled it back out, and it's just been sitting in the shop since then. After pulling the jaws out and taking a look at the screws, they look to be in excellent condition. And while I did pull the bolts out for the back plate, I decided not to take the back plate off. There was no reason to really separate it. I just took them out so I could clean it up. And this goes really fast, as it only took me about 45 minutes or so from start to finish. I did break out the wire brush just to get the threads clean on the outside and the back plate itself, and I didn't get too worried about the recess on the back side of the chuck. I indicated the chuck on the outside edge as well as the inside and basically got the same reading. The camera eye doesn't lie. I don't know how many times I've done this, but it's obvious that I missed a couple of spots there. And I didn't see it until I reviewed the footage. Of course, I went back and took care of it. I'll let you figure out where it's at. The lathe's cold right now, so it's like an old car. It takes a few minutes for it to warm up. Alright, so I've been asked this question a zillion times in the comments as to why I don't use evaporust. And I do use evaporust. But as you can see, the faceplate was done with evaporust and the forejaw was done with Scotch-Brite by hand. And the difference is obvious. It's night and day. So that's the reason why I do it with Scotch-Brite and not Evaporust. Is Evaporust great for some parts? Absolutely it is. But some parts, you don't want to do that. So it took me a while to get the steady rest cleaned up because it's such an awkwardly shaped part. I was chasing it around all over the place trying to get it clean. And in the end, I wound up buffing these adjuster caps so that I could get them finally cleaned up. So this is a bunch of random carbide that I got with an auction lot. I paid very little for it and I haven't sorted it, and it took me a while to get it sorted out. And I've got a bunch of different stuff I don't even have holders for, but hey, there it is all sorted out with all the scrap picked out of it. And in that same lot, I got a couple of these, but they're too big for my tool holders, and so I ordered a couple of 5/8 tool holders, which are oversized, and cut this down to 5/8 to make it work. Here I'm just kind of testing this out to see what it'll do. I know my approach is all wrong, but I wasn't very happy with it. Just I think because the insert was worn out. This is a different 5/8 shank carbide tool, and as you can see, it's working much nicer. This is working the other end of that piece of pipe with yet another carbide cutter and the correct approach angle. So I've been needing soft jaws for some time now, and I was going to make a set for both chucks as the jaw shape is just slightly different so they're not interchangeable. But in the end, I think my material's a little bit too thin, so I just make a set for the 3-jaw chuck, and I held off on the 4-jaw just to see how this performs, and I'll probably get some thicker material in the future and do both chucks again. The lathe cabinet has two shelves inside just where the door is only, and on the left side is the motor and the Reeves drive, and on the right side is just an empty space, and there is no shelf on the right side at all. It's open to the floor. So I made a piece of 3/4 plywood fit that space, and then I added another piece of plywood to the bottom shelf just to make it easy to slide the chucks in and out. And of course, with wax on it, it's sealed up and makes it easy to slide. And while I was at it with the plywood, I decided that I would make a shelf on the back side of the lathe here to have a place to put all the tools that I'm working with at the moment, just to make it easy to just be able to drop stuff right there and not have to think about it too much. There's really not enough room on the back side of the lathe there, and it's really not in the way as far as lathe operation goes, so that's a plus. And I don't get very much swarf back there at all, so my idea was just to make something that fits tightly and is easy to remove so I can clean it if needed and get it out of the way. And as you'll see, I think I came up with a really good solution. Now, if you're worried about fastening this down, you could put cleats on the bottom side, or you could bolt it somehow, or you could use magnets. Mine fits very tightly, so in my instance, I didn't need to do any of that. I had to make a 45-degree cut here on the underside of the shelf because the casting on the lathe is tapered and I needed to relieve that so that it fits properly. The mount bolts for the lathe are just slightly proud of the chip tray. So here I'm just marking the head location so that I can relieve that. And if you see the little triangle there, that's from the bolt. So that gave me a nice spot to index off of to relieve some holes and make it fit really well. Just applying some 77 adhesive to the wood, and that is a piece of toolbox drawer liner. So I think that turned out really well. As you can see, it doesn't add too much to the footprint of the lathe. And hey, look at that. All of my tools right at my fingertips. So this last part here is for Lance and Patrick over at Active Atom. They reminded me that I had one of these Alena Switzerland made chucks because of their last video where they cleaned up all of their chucks. And I got this with my South Bend, and I actually used it before in a video where I made some draw knife handles, so go check that out if you want to see it in action. But just for size reference, I put a penny in there so you could get an idea of how small it is. Thanks for watching.